Today's daf is daf Samach Ches Amud Aleph. Okay, so we're talking about how Kiddushin, in the Mishnah, talking about the different categories, and we explained that if the Kiddushin, everything is effective, and then we say that everybody is kosher and so on and so forth, and you follow the father. If there's an Aveda taking place and the Kiddushin is effective, then we go after the pogum amongst the two. And we gave an example of a widow with a kohen and a kohen gadol, or a divorcee with a kohen. And then we learned anyone that has no Kiddushin at all, for example, Arayas, then, but because with this person there's no Kiddushin, with others there are, then the child is actually a mamzel. So we're following the opinion of Ben Tamer. The last one is that if there's no Kiddushin at all, for example, a goy, then you go after the mother. And the last thing we learned was, how do we know that all the arayas, the Kiddushin, not effective, and therefore the child's a mamzer? We compared everything to Achais Isha. We had two psukim, V'hoisel Ish Acher, and that means it cannot, that V'hoisel, which is the union of Havoya, Kiddushin cannot be with anybody who's a relative. It has to be an Ish Acher. And we had two psukim for the wife, the sister of your wife. One is to tell you there's an Aveira, and one to tell you that there's no Havoya at all. Okay, we're up to the Gemara here. And then we ask the question, so l'chayda nida also is an Isra of Karas. So how is it if you marry your wife and she happened to be nida at the time? How is it that Kiddushin are effective? And we explained, because there's a possible with Tihi nidasa Allah, but Tihi is Havaya Kiddushin. Says the Gemara, Rav Acha bar Yaakov will give another explanation. The Gemara is about 8 lines from the top of the page. Says the Gemara, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, how do we know that there's no Kiddushin at all by someone by Arayas? Someone is an erba to you, like your sister, and so on. He says we learn a Kavachaymer from Yevama. By Yevama, which is only a lav, and yet the pasuk says the Kiddushin with somebody else is not an effective Kiddushin. And surely when it comes to Arayas, where there's a capital punishment, or chorus, at least from Hashem, then surely there's no Kiddushin. But we learn all Arayas from Yevama. A Yevama is not allowed to marry anybody except her own brother-in-law, or she receives chatzitza. And according to Rav, who says that Kiddushin are not effective at all when it comes to Yevama, it says the pasuk like Siya Eishes Hameis Hachutza. Like Siya, we're teaching the whole time means like there's no Kiddushin if she goes to a chutz outside of the brother-in-law she's meant to marry. So the Gemara Kavchay Yevama, Ma Yevama she belab like Tavsim Kiddushin. There's no Kiddushin. Chayove Mises. V'chayove krisis. Arayas. Some arayas you get karas, and some arayas you actually get the capital punishment. Is surely lokoshkin that there's no Kiddushin whatsoever. So let's compare everything to Yevama. Forget about arayas from Misa. What about Stamin Avera Lav, a kohen marrying a divorcee? It's a lav. Let's compare it to Yevama and say that there's no Kiddushin at all as well. Like just use a method, not a kavachayim, but use a thing called a binyanav, something which is similar, or mematzinu. So the Gemara, Papa Chayavi Lavin behedye ksibu, and no, by Chayavi Lavin, not like Rabbi Kiva says Itaka, that that is no Kedusha Shumam Zaydim. We say it says Fredish Kisi Yeneli Ish Day Noshim. The Pasha Kesait, it says if a man has 2 wives, Achas Ahuva v'Achas No, one is desirable and one isn't. Now, the way the Medrash learns who's the one that's not desirable is the Eishes Yefas Taya, that woman that you, during the war, you took into captivity and then you decided to marry her. But the Gemara doesn't learn like that Medrash. The Gemara learns that we're talking about 2 Yiddish women. One is Ahuva, one is Snua. Now, and the Torah tells you, don't take the firstborn of the Ahuva, who happens to be younger, and give him the rights of a firstborn. You have to give it to the firstborn, who happens to be the son of a Snua. So now his question is, the laws of the Torah are the laws of the Torah. Does it matter who you love or you don't love the Torah? Why would it even register? So the Eibush really cares about the emotions and the relationship. The halacha says the firstborn is the one who is treated like a b'chayr. You're firstborn. Elahuva means ahuva bin asur. The Eibush thinks it's a wonderful marriage because hapi halacha it's correct, and snua means snua bin asur. Hapi halacha, this marriage is an avera. And yet to come Rahman, it says Kisiyena. It says that you're married to 2 women. So it's clear that a lav is married. So that's how we know we don't compare it to Yevama. Yevama is an uisnav. Yevama is an exception. And a lav is not excited. Kisiyena. Taser really asks, Maybe ahuva means a tzadekis, and a snua means a rasha. Nothing to do with whether you're living in sin or not. And you would have thought that the son of the ahuva should be treated better than the son of the snua. And Taisa says there's no such habit. Why would you even think that the child should be punished because of the sins of the mother? We actually had more in the about a guy who said, about giving, you shouldn't, actually in other places as well, you shouldn't take away the Yerusha from somebody's Yerusha because you never know who the children are going to be. So, so therefore, must be snu. Snu means they're living in sin or not living in sin. Says the Gemara, okay. But Rabbi Kiva, Taka says that even by Chayav Elavin, there's no Kiddushin. What does he do with the Pasuk Kisiyena? It says clearly here that there's a Achas a Snua. How does he learn Pshat? Now the Gemara could have just answered very simply, like that Medrash. That Snua is the Yefas Toyer. But the Gemara doesn't learn it at all. The Gemara is not great as that Medrash at all. Who's, yeah. Just a halacha now. A medrash. But in halacha, is a halacha. It says you can't pass it from a medrash. So now here clearly. Yeah, what's the snua mean? What does snua mean in halacha? So what is he going to learn? He learns Amana Kohen Gadol. When does Rabbi Kiva say that snua is not effective kedushin if it's a lav? If it's a lav, but within the lav itself, there's one exception. A Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry an almana, but if he did, it's an effective marriage. It's typhus. Because they're both kosher people. They're just. But it's a lav. But it's a lav. It's a lav. Rabbi Kiva holds that a lav is what do you call it? Is not a kedushin. There it is, typhus. Why? Because it says in the pasuk lo yechalon. It says that a Kohen Gadol should not marry an almana. It says lo yechalon. So we darshan that the only thing that you achieve, as we'll see in one second, is your children are halalim. But not that the marriage is not affecting marriage. We learn from the pasuk itself. So the Gemara could have from everything Rabbi Kiva said, there's no kedushin in the child. Why? The Torah clearly said a kohen gadol should not marry a mona. Why? And then said, you shouldn't make your children chalalim. So clearly from the Torah is limiting that what is the repercussions of this particular aveda, that your children are chalalim, but not that the kedushin is not affected, but that they're mamzedim. Not the mamzedim. Okay. So within the world of Lavim, Rabbi Kiva found a snua. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Sheva, we had this a few days ago, and according to Rabbi Sheva, he learned that the Amma Boyev and the Tzavach Halakib and Yeshua Kosher Lebibis Rav Mamzer, he disagrees. He holds that in all Lavim the child's a Mamzer. So what's Rabbi Kiva do? Who's the snua? Who is the snua? So the snua could be Chayav Yaseh. Rabbi Sheva screamed at Rabbi Akiva, holds that opinion. Yeah, no, Rabbi Akiva is making life very difficult. Rabbi Akiva is creating so many mamzedim because he's including a Kohen Gadol and Almana is also going to be a case of a mamzed. So according to Rabbi Sheva, who's a achasnua? So maybe it's someone who's over chiyavasei. For example, a chiyavasei would be a mitzri. The third generation comes back. So if you marry a mitzri, the second generation, you're over a chiyavasei. So the problem is as follows. What would Rabbi Sheva hold when it comes to Chiyah say? Because he's using very strong language. Even the tzavach, he's creating too many mamzedim. So, Rabbi Sheva, if you learn like Rabbi Sheva, the only thing he's arguing is that Rabbi Samoy's case. You say Alamona Kohen Gadol is a mamzer. I say no, it's not a mamzer. Shouldn't be a mamzer. But how did he understand Rabbi Kiva that it is a mamzer? Okay, then I can answer. Even Rabbi Kiva, there are cases of snua. There are cases which effective the kedushin where if you're over Chiyah say. Even Rabbi Kiva will be made. Chiyah say the kedushin is effective, and the child's not a mamzer, and that's the achas snua. Then cause a shapit. Then it makes sense. But if he's not arguing up Samoy, he's saying Rabbi Kiva holds that anyone you live in sin. I don't care if it's a lav. I don't care if it's an asay. If the kedushin is not effective, and the child is a mamzer, who's the achas snua? What's he going to learn over here? See, and the Gemara doesn't answer. That's talking about the yeshifas toy. So we answer the Be'ula, the Kohen Gadol. We're talking of, what Rabbi Kiva is, even according to Rabbi Sheva, a Kohen Gadol has to marry a psula, which is an assay. And that one there, everyone holds it's effective, and the child is not a mamzer. Umayshna, why Taka should it be different? If Rabbi Sheva learned every single marriage and sin is not effective, and the child's a mamzer, so why a Kohen Gadol marrying a psula, a Be'ula, you're telling me the Kiddushin is chal? Says the Gemara, because the Havale Asay she'enu shava b'kol. We learned and I say that is not equal to everybody. It means only limited to Kainim and not it doesn't apply to Israelim is a weaker assay. And therefore he's made that particular when it comes to a lav, we make no distinction. We just said before that a Kain will marry a Grusha. No, it's not effective, and it's a Kain Godel. How many Kain Godelim are there? And yet a Kain Godel we say no, it's not effective, and the child's a mamzer. But when it comes to the Isra Psula, that we say is such a weak issa that even if it keeps made, it's effective. But Rabbanon. Now I'm going to ask a question. Rabbanon, Ademukila b'chayav elavi in the Rabbanon. Why do they say that it's talking about achasnua? Is talking about that you marry someone in sin like a lab, and you're telling me the kedushin, and you're learning from here the kedushin is effective. Remember we just said, how did Rabbanon know when it comes to a lab the kedushin is effective in the child of mamzer? Because there's achasnua. But how did Rabbanon know that? Maybe achasnua is talking in the case of bula koin or a mitzvah say, and if they have no basis for coming up with this chiddush that by a lab the kedushin is effective in the child's of mamzer. How do they know? If this is the whole basis of achasnua, how do you know to increase, to expand the snua to include lavin? Maybe snua is limited to asay or less. Well, so you know why? Hani chayove asay b'mayninu. This chayove asay, what are we talking about? Each day in mitzvahs, day in snuyas. If you can tell me where's the chiv asay, for example, they're both a mitzvah, both wives are mitzvah, or stay in snuyas. They're both are no good for you. Then stay in snuyas. It can't be both, because then why achas ahuva? Which one of the two is ahuva? Neither. No, boss. I achas mitzvahs v'achas Israelis. Oh, this is what happened. He married a Israelis and he married a mitzvah. So achas ahuva, achas nua, right? And you're asking how to come to alav. It seems from here achas ahuva v'achas nua. They're both from the same people. One of them is good, one is no good. So clearly the Gemara says it cannot be the Medrash. Not only the Gemara doesn't go to the Medrash, the Gemara argues with the Medrash. Because Yifas Toyar is a different nation. If the way we learn of there that this is Yifas Toyar and the other one is Israel, this one in extra really that's going to happen. However, our Gemara says no. It sounds like the Am Achaz, only about this. One is Ahuva, one is Snua. So it can't, Gemara clearly argues with the Medrash. So therefore it can't be an asay. Which asay we over? The only asay we have is mitzvahs. No, boss. Oh, I have another say. A kohen gadol has to marry a psula. Has to marry a psula. Maybe that's what the pasuk is talking about. How could it be? How many kohen gadol are we talking about? Me, Siv, Tiyena, the kohen. Doesn't say in pasuk that it's talking about a kohen. It's talking about everybody. Klal Yisrael. Therefore, snua cannot be talking about the case of a kohen gadol. It must be talking about the case of a normal law. Rabbi Kiva, we just learned about him. Snua means only a case of a kohen gadol the bu'ula. It's a problem. So the Gemara, Kiva has no choice. Because Rabbi Kiva learns that all lavin is no kedushin, and according to Rabbi Sheva, all chiva say is no kedushin. So what's left of the puzzle? He has no brayda. So he has no brayda. You doichik yourself. Exactly. And maybe that's why the Gemara paskin like that's why the halacha paskin like mentema. Not like even though we have extra mission, more than that. The Gemara uses the expression dochik umukinafshi. He's doichik the tailor in order to fit into his, which is a very modern thing. So what does that mean? If you restore the chas v'shalom the tailor to fit in your pshat. Anyway. Like bending over backwards. Yeah, but out of his way to come up with something. Okay, then it says in Gemara, anyone that has no kedushin to anybody, there your child is like the mother, which we said example is a shivcha and a nochis. Says the Gemara, how do you know? Remain here with the chamoid. A nation that is similar to a chamoid. Right? Now, just like you can't have kedushin with a chamoid, so too you can't have a kedushin with an eved or a shivcha. Ashken like talks about kedushin. Here we find that there's no kedushin. The Lord the Kamaisa Hainos like her. Damakra Isha the Yulaga Tiladina who owns the children of this Isha, the master, not the father. So therefore it goes after the mother. She's a shivcha. The fascinating little here. That's very we had the Gemara Kedushin from the Chesed that talks about that Asa was his mum. The Asa shiny because his mum. So Asa was treated like a yid, but he was a mummer, somebody who like an apostate. or deliberate doesn't have Vedas. But we never talk about Yishmael, the generation before. The Ritva says here, and I don't know. So the Ritva says over here, which is hard to understand. The Ritva says over here when it says Shvu lechem poyim achamoy, says the Ritva that Avraham Avinu left behind Shnei Na'arav, his two Na'arav. So normally we learn Pshat. Who the two Na'arav? One was Eliezer, who was an Eved, and one was Yishmael, his son. And he says Shvu lechem poyim achamoy. Is what Amadem Lechamoy is Yishmael. I think says the Ritva there. It can't be Yishmael. It must be there was a guy there as well. There was an Eved and a guy. Everybody wonders, well, why can't it be Yishmael? The part of Pshat is it was Yishmael. So they all learned Pshat that Ritva hold Yishmael was a Yid. Yishmael had the full status of a Yid. His mother was Hagar, but the moment that Avram married Hagar, she's set free. That because he married her, not married her. So the moment Avram married Hagar, she became a free woman, and if she became a free woman, therefore Yishmael now had a din of a Yid, which is an amazing thing that Yishmael was a Yid. So we're having all the trouble we have is from our own cousins, between Esav and now Yishmael.
I'll ask you another question. It says that all the Shomer is told to the Kulach and
No, what's the problem?
How do you marry mitzvahs? Hagar was a mitzvah. She was a princess from Egypt. How do you marry mitzvahs?
So good question. Maybe the Easter of mitzvahs didn't happen till the story of mitzvah. I don't know. Good question.
Everybody also didn't have until then. He kept everything.
Remind me of a good shot. Sarah suggests to Avram, look, you can't have any kids. Why don't you marry? I'll bring you a maid, Hagar. She gave him Hagar, and then she had a kid right away, Yishmael. And Sarah suddenly became so incensed with Avram. I hate you, and this and that. It doesn't make sense. It was Sarah's suggestion. He did exactly what he did, and now had a child. So a pshat like this. I'll tell you a beautiful pshat. All the Imois had the letter Hey in their name, and they were therefore Sarai couldn't have any kids. So Sarai became Sarah, and suddenly they were able to have kids. Rivka had a Hey in her name, and then eventually she had kids. Leah, and you need two Heys, Abraham and Sarah. But Leah, Yitzchak, and Rivka did not have two Heys, and therefore she was not caught in the beginning. Leah had a Hey, and she took therefore a maid called Zilpah, has a Hey in her name, and therefore they were able to have children. Rachel took Bilhah, who's older, but Bilhah has two Heys in her name. So one Hey went over to Rachel. Why? Because Rachel owned her. She was a mistress. It was her shivcha. So therefore she was a mistress. She had two Heys. So what happened here was that Hagar, why did they choose Hagar? Because Hagar had a Hey in her name. So Sarah thought, I'm going to suggest to Avram, take Hagar. Hagar is my maid. So, of course, it's my maid. I own her. I own the Hay, so I'll be able to have children. But what happened was when Avram married her, instead of just living as a shivcha, he married her. He set her free. At the moment Avram set her free, who owned the Hay? Not Sarah. Hagar owned her own Hay, and that was Sarah's tie to Avram. My whole purpose was that she should remain a shivcha. I own her, and therefore I'll have the benefit. But you took her as a wife, and therefore you set her free. And now I have nothing from it. You have a Yishmael, and we don't have a Yishmael. Anyway, not mine, but I don't remember. Okay, let's continue. Beautiful shot.
No questions. About the amount of pays and the people.
You get older, you'll understand. So you want to write it. Okay, that's a shivcha. Nachris minola, and how do you know by a goy that goes after the mother? Or makro, it says in Pasik. It says in Pasik, the loitis chatzen bum. Should be no inyan of marriage there. There's no marriage by a goy, and that's how Rashi learns. We learn from loitis chatzen bum. You cannot marry a goy. Traces has a big problem with that because we read going to Bummers. Loitis chatzen bum is only talking about the Zayin Umas. And since it's not Shaykh Kiddushin by a goy, what do you mean loitis chatzen bum? You can't marry. So therefore, Traces says chatzen bum is talking about after they became Jewish. That these 7 nations, after they became Jews, there's a whole machlek is a shame there's an isim ha'toid of marrying a goy, because there's no marriage. You're living with a goy, you're doing whatever sin there is, but there's no marriage. So latest chatan bum is like Rabbi says is a Zion is a 7 nations, 7 nations, and only after they converted. But Rashi learns you like this Chatan Bomb is talking about all goyim. Tosha says that Gemara being the Chatan Bomb, but it really means the second half of the pasuk. Anyway, where it says Bitchel sit and Livnoi and all that, that's the Isser. Tell you what further. Ashkach, okay, we find that there's no Kiddushin there. But the Kamation on, I know they got married, whatever, they didn't forget they had a child. I know go that to the mother, they give that to the father. Ki yasid as bincha ma'acharai. Don't let your son marry a Goyish woman, or let your daughter marry a Yiddish person, a Goyish person, because ki yasid is masculine. Ki yasid is bincha ma'acharai. It doesn't take the flip side. It only says that the masculine will take away bincha ma'acharai. Bincha haba Yisraelis kara bincha. It says your son born from Yisraelis is his son. But the son that comes from a goy. In other words, she was if it was your son giving to a girl, it doesn't say and she will take your son away, because it's not taking your son away. It's taka goy. The child's a goy. It's not taking your son away. Fatchila wasn't yours. Elvin, it's her son. That's how ki yasid as bincha. From here we see ben bitcha bincha. What's he saying here? He's saying this. If you just learn you could learn when it says ki yasid as bincha. We're not talking about the child that they can have. We're talking about the son that you gave to a shiksa. The son that you gave to a shiksa is ki yasid as bincha. Is his father-in-law will somehow or another convince him to live like a goy. We're not worried about the grandson, the child of that union. We're talking about your own child by giving it to a goy. Kamlan Levina says, no. We're not talking. That's what Rabbi Yechon meant. He was talking about the child that they're going to produce. Ben bitcha, then we're talking about. And yet it says bincha. So it's from here we're talking about the grandson is like your son. Grandson like your son. Now the Ritva says a very interesting thing. Again, and the Ramban, which is a little bit hard to understand, which I didn't understand, but I'll just say what he says. He says, why tak we worried about the grandchild, not the child? Your son is going to marry a shik, so won't he behave like a guy? So he says, no, your children, you gave them such a good chinuch that they're not going to be seduced.
Even though he's marrying a shiksa.
Yeah, how do you explain that? He married a shiksa and he's not going to be seduced? What's that? I don't understand. As if you could be a frumiyid and marry a shiksa. It's what are we worried about? The next generation. Hard to understand. Very hard to understand. Anyway.
Have someone who's married to become towards the shore.
Yeah, but that's how he's coming about true, not because what the state of mind at the Prashas Maisa was not that. Says the Gemara, Kisavad. I remember in Hawaii we knew somebody who was married to a German woman, and she never was Megaya. I've tried to Megaya before, never Megaya. Always came 3 times a day down with a minion. He used to learn Gemara every day, Daf Yomi, and he learned Chassidus every day. Yeah, believe him, and she was not Megaya. My brother was trying to convince him the whole time to be Megaya. Wasn't interested. You're right. So maybe that's what the ritual means. It's shaykh, but then maybe it happened afterwards. I don't know. The Gemara says, "So Neima Kesava Ravina." So let's say Ravina is telling us that what Kiyosid as Bincha, your grandson, is only what Bincha is referring to your grandson. That your grandson Yosid, that the father of your grandson, which means that your daughter is a Yid. Kiyosid have Vlad Mamzer. In other words, and this is how Rashi is, if the kid goes after the father, then the kid is a guy. He converts, you're full-fledged Yid. But if the kid is after the mother and she lived in sin, then the child will be affected. Might even be a mamzer. In fact, that's one of the reasons some of the poskim that the Ethiopians should be treated like goyim and let them go through gates for their own benefit. Because if you say they're Yidden, who knows Chash Mamzedin? If they're goyim, they're Magayin, that's it. Only thing they can't marry a kohen. But that's about it. Anyway, in fact, there's a big machlekes we have in the Gemara in Yevamos, we'll have later, and also in the Shainim. If an Eved or a Chacham Ba Bas Yisrael is a child is considered is a mamzer, or when we say the child is Yisrael, but a mamzer, see the opinions. The child's a mamzer. The child's a yid, but he cannot marry. If it's a girl, cannot marry a kohen, and some say even their child cannot marry the father is a gay and the mother is a yid. That person's child daughter cannot marry a kohen either. The next generation as well. And then some say that no, completely kosher, vlad kosher, that if it's a girl, go ahead and she herself, forget about the next generation, can marry a kohen. Three opinions in the poskim. There's a beautiful Chavas Das. The Chavas Das has this shit that goes as follows. I don't know if it was brought down halacha, but he basically like this. That if the mother is, you need two out of the three things here. There's the father, there's the mother, and how the child is brought up. So he says that when a child is born, to reconcile everything, he said when a child is born, the mother is a yid, the father is a goy, or vice versa. He holds even the child, father is a goy, the mother is a yid, the child is a goy. But if the child is raised like a yid, then 2/3 of him is a yid. Then retrospectively, the child is a yid. If I remember correctly. Or this is either that, or even if the mother's a yid. When do we say that the child is kosher? Maybe the mother's a yid. I'm trying to remember now. Maybe the mother's a yid, but even the mother's a yid. If the child is raised like a yid, then it's retrospective that he's a yid. If the child is not like raised a yid, then it's like a father who's a goy, and the child is not a yid at all. Halacha. Well, very good. Very good. Anyway, and Teisha disagrees with Rashi. The child there's a lot of different gifts in this whole Gemara here. But Nihi, the kosher lahave, mamzer lahave, Gemara says no. Maybe Ravina is saying it that they're living in sin because the mother's a yid and the father's a goy. That means they're living in sin. So the child's not 100% kosher. Or the apostle mikre, he's only a apostle, not a mamzer. According to this gift, the child of that union cannot marry a kohen. If she's a girl, cannot marry a kohen. The son, that maybe his daughter cannot marry a kohen. But that's it, not a mamzer. So the Gemara, ahi b'shiva goyim, see that whole pasuk is talking about the 7 nations of Canaan. Okay, so there we say the child's like the mother, but in Kiyos is bincha and all that. But all other nations, how do you know the child goes after the mother? On Makro, it says Kiyosid as bincha, but it doesn't talk about only that particular group. It just says Stam. Kiyosid bincha. The rabbis call Amasim. Anyone who is going to take, if the father's a guy, they're going to influence the child and therefore take the child away. Says the Gemara, this makes sense. The Rab Shimon, this makes sense. Okay, now. That was Yosef bincha is extra to tell you everybody. So like this, Rab Shimon holds with Darshan time of the Kro. In other words, like for example, it says Baal Mona, you shouldn't go and bring back the Abad, you shouldn't take the mashkin every single day. So Rav Shimon says, but if she's a rich woman, you can. Why? Because by an almana, she's poor, you'll have to come back every night and give it back to her bed, let's say her linen, she's sleeping, every morning you come and take it back. Then it looks like the rumors will start spreading. But by a gvir, but if she's a rich woman, you don't have to bring it back. So then she's dashes time to crow, and it impacts the halacha. So you're allowed to take their abad, you're allowed to take their mashkin by a rich woman. So the same thing here. Why taka can't your daughter marry a guy? If the child is Jewish, Nachmer, what's the problem? The problem is Kiyasa is bincha. That's a logical thing. I don't need a pasuk to tell me that. The logic is the father is going to lead the child to go astray. It's a logical thing. So why did the Torah say Kiyasa? That's extra. Must be to darshan that not only this East is limited to these 7 nations, but to all nations of the world. But if you hold like the Tanoim who say that no, we don't darshan time to crow, the Torah has to spell it out. Then Kiyasa is bincha we need for the Zion Umas. There's nothing extra here. How do you know all other nations are also as well? Says about the time of the crow, we would have known anyway that it makes sense why you shouldn't marry. So kiyos is extra. El Rabbanon, who hold that we need kiyos as bincha, the Torah has to give you the reason why. My time, the Gemara says you're right. On Makra, there's another pasuk where it talks about Pasuk Yisaytze that you fast Torah, you fast Torah, the one you took in captivity. And first we tried, you want to marry her, so first you try to make her look ugly, and we try to, somehow or another to remove that intense desire you have to live with her. But after the 30 days, she cries after parents and everything else, and you still desire her. So the pasuk says, only afterwards, only afterwards can you join her, uba alta. Only afterwards can you have relations with her. I mean, before then you couldn't. Miklaudi mikara, like it says ba'alta. Ba'alta is an expression we use for marriage. Miklaudi mikara letas kedushin. That before she converts, there's no condition whatsoever. We're not talking about the Zion Amim. We're talking about Bechlal. When you go to war, any nation. Like yeah. But we had a big machlek. You remember Rashi and Tesis in Gittin. We're also going to have it in Sanhedrin. Whether you're actually allowed to be at least once before, or you have to wait and pass Besaler.
That you have to wait. I mean, the novel and the whole
That's to
process.
marry. To marry.
Ah,
So, I guess to take away that intense desire. Okay, think about it. Ashka, okay, oh, we know from me like tough Kiddushin. So we know from me that what? That there's no Kiddushin because it says only Acha Kain, although the commission on Haino, the child has the same status as her. I know maybe it goes out to the father. On Makro, Kisiyen, it says in Pasik, Kisiyen, talks about again the Achas Ahuvas. No, it says Kisiyen, Yolduloi. It says you'll have the person will have two wives, Achas no. Then it says the Yolduloi be born to him, Bonim. So we say Kisiyena Karina baby Yolduloi. When do we say the Yolduloi? When do we say the children go after the father? Only Kisiyena when there's Kedushin. But when there's no Kedushin, remember again, we're saying Havoya means Kedushin, and like Karina Yolduloi, it's not your children. And when you say Shivcha Nami, if so, Shivcha the same thing, that the child should be like her from this very passage. Once you have this expression of Yolduloi, Kisiyena of the Yolduloi, that the only time we consider the children yours is Kisiyena when there's proper Kedushin. So by a Shivcha as well. Since we learned already there's no proper Kedushin, and we asked on top of the page, but below the Kamosa, how do we know? And we said the issue we learned because there goes to Ladjanel. What do you need that pasuk for? We have this pasuk right here where it says that the only time Kisiyena of the Yolduloi, the only time when there's the Yolduloi, it belongs to the father, Kisiyena. Where it says, and we know that there's no kedushin by a shivcha because it says Amadim lechamay, right? Shulchan payim al chamay, Amadim lechamay. If you let there, tila denel amali. What do you need that pasuk for? The Gemara said, "Gitanya, we learned. If a man says to his shivcha who is pregnant, Harei at bas chayim, I want to set you free, but v'lodach evet, but the child that you have in your womb, I want that child to remain me. And the question is whether the child is considered part of the mother, and therefore you can't split her in half. Something along the line, Uber Yedach Ima or not. So we say Havlad Kimois because it holds that the Vlad is just like the mother. No, the mother is free, the child is free. Chachamim say Dvar of Kayamim. The Chachamim say that no, that the Vlad is that you can split the mother from the child. You can split the mother from the child. How does that? Remember, it says how does that prove the Chacham? The Chacham say you can split the mother from the child, and the pasuk seems to say you put the mother and child together. My Talmud. This pasuk is supporting Rabbi Shaglili. And what? You cannot separate the mother from the child. You cannot say the mother, you're free, and the child is going to remain in that. It's only when they are together. And therefore, we know the child is kamoyha. That's what we do the pasuk. So you want to know why we use the pasuk? You're right. You don't need to tell you that the child of a shikha is like the mother going on to the father. That we know from the pasuk. You see, what he needs is pasuk for that you cannot separate the mother from the child when you set